1918. Good to see everyone here. Can I be presumptuous that we're all here about the doctor's surgery land?
Yeah.
Is it the land or the new surgery, basically?
Both.
Okay. What I can do is I can give you a quick, can I read a little call with, you try to throw your stick at me? No worries. Yeah, so we had a call with Jamie at MPC today and Cara, who's the head of PR for the trust, and just kind of catch up following on from the announcement last week, or the week before now. I'm losing track of days now. But and just of it is they're going to do their best to keep us in the loop going forwards. They are semi-apologetic for not letting us be aware of the announcement until the morning of. Our understanding is, I think, from conversations, Assura might have been aware of it when, in January, when they put into the trust for increased rent on the property to try and make the project more feasible. That was rejected, and then I'm understanding that the trust themselves have kind of looked at alternative options. One being obviously the purchasing the house attached to the existing surgery and the building down there.
Mr. Chairman, could you speak up for the
I'll do my best. So, the gist of it is they're going to try and do their best to keep us in the loop. We have raised a few of the concerns that we've seen through social media with them and from various emails and from residents. And what I would say is they're pushing forward with it, and they anticipate they'll have a pre-planning application submitted in the next couple of weeks, or at least by the end of the month, to County Council. They have already been in discussions with County Council with regards to it. From the call today, they have mentioned that, and they are obviously got the 12th of June. They're going to have the drop-in session where people can go and ask questions. They're going to have questionnaires anyway that they're going to hand out. What we've also said, because the kind of time limits on that are not great for working families, we've suggested to them that they hold another one if they can't extend that one on. So they might then, in a couple of weeks after that, or in a month or so after, once there's more information, they'll then hold an evening session if possible, or they have offered to come along to a parish council meeting then as well.
Are you guys going to pursue that with them to try and
we are
come about with a solution?
Yeah. We are also planning with Councillor Walton, who's not here, she's going to push forward with them getting a regular update put into the Bridge magazine as well, and then try and keep that as an ongoing thing whilst the project's going on, and then after that as well with just surgery updates. Obviously, because I don't know, obviously the PPG get aware of certain things, I just don't know how quickly that disseminates down to everyone else who are not PPG members. And then obviously if we find out information, we'll do our best to pass it on as well.
Excuse me, can I make a comment?
Okay.
You're speaking that you're finding this totally acceptable, yet we're led to believe that yourselves have never been part of this negotiation at all.
Yes.
Is this correct?
That is correct, yes.
So why is it not being questioned?
Excuse me, two seconds, okay. I received an email on the Monday of
Yes, I know you did.
of the annual parish meeting. Okay? No, just bear with me. No, excuse me. You'll bear with me, and I will speak, and then we'll get into public questions. Okay?
Yeah.
But to answer your question quickly, there, I got an email from Cara on the Monday that we were holding the annual parish meeting saying, "Can I get a phone call with you?" I dropped an email back. "Here's my number. Phone me anytime." We've missed each other that day. I then had the annual meeting where I explained to those that were here, "I've missed this call. As soon as I get an update, I will put that information out." I've had that call at 9 o'clock whilst I was at work. In the time between 9 and I believe something like 10:10, myself, Gemma and the rest of the council worked on a statement that we issued straight away as soon as when we were happy. But other than before that point, we were not aware that they had changed their plans.
Hence my question to you
Yeah,
was, when it's my turn.
we have very much said that, I've said to them that it was rather underhand the way they did it, because I feel quite passionate. I personally have put in countless hours, along with all the other councillors, the clerk, the previous clerk as well, even some of you in the audience have put in countless hours to try and get this surgery happening. But the one thing we need to take from it is, at least we're still getting a surgery in Felton. You know, we might not be a shiny new build, but they are committing to spend money down there. They're going to put in, their plans at the moment are to refurb the big building into a bigger surgery, and the smaller existing surgery will be used as a dispensary. That's the limited information we have at the moment on it.
Can I speak now?
Well, if you can let me kind of finish going through the update on it. As Councillor Watkins walking in, as I said, we plan on pushing forward, and we're going to cut up to try and get regular updates in the bridge. We've given them the deadline of the 10th of July for the start editing of the next publication. Obviously, we just missed one there, unfortunately, but it's something that we're going to push to try and get regularly on the bridge. And as I say, we have got. We're not long on from it now. We've already had one catch-up call with them. We intended having further, and we'll push for this evening slot as well to try and work, because it's the one thing that it works for those that are retired or can work at home, that can now nip away for half an hour, but working families, the times aren't suitable at all. Like, personally, I can't even make it during that time, so I'll be in work. They will have operational staff at that drop-in as well, because rather than just because I think the biggest concerns are maybe more the operational side of the practice rather than the actual building itself or anything, because at the moment they have said there's circa 1,600 patients to that practice, and that's what they base their statistics on for. 1,600. Yeah, they use that as their sort of basis for the service they're providing. We have raised concerns with them that, with regards to the people having to travel to Widrington for even simple things like going to get bloods. So we are pushing them. We did get a bit of I'll pass the gentleman.
So these were the main points that I brought up, is that I asked them to put forward a minimum service statement of what they were going to be committing to, of when they would be having doctors there, nurses there, etc., and what that minimum service expectation that we can have would be. Obviously, they're going into a bigger practice and things, but much of the decisions that they're making at the moment with that service provision is what's being used at the moment. And I think this goes into what Babs was saying as well, is, you know, about our acceptance of this situation and how we move forward with it and things and how we address it, is that this situation has evolved dramatically over the past decade. That practice has changed hands, and the understanding that they have of the provision in Felton differs greatly to what it was 35 years ago when I first moved to this village. And I think it's then building up a picture and understanding of what our expectations of them and what our desires for it and things, and why people feel so despondent about the situation at the moment. We're dealing with a completely fresh set of ears on this, and we need to communicate effectively with them on that. So I asked them to put forward a minimum service statement from that, and they were talking about the data that they've got, and I was saying, well, you need to look at the relevance of this data. Much of what isn't being used at that practice, people are not going to request a service that isn't there. You can't book in for something if it isn't being offered. And also that when we look at the people that probably are struggling to utilise that service, it's a demographic that might not feel at ease communicating it with the practice as well. And they need to set up a direct line of communication that's easy for people to say, this is what we're finding difficult about it, because I think if we've got that line of communication and they're able to extract data from that, then the likelihood is that we're going to get a better provision of service. I know there's a number of things that were available in Felton that people stopped using as well because it was not appropriate, and it wasn't, the staff weren't able to give a good level of service due to the building design and things and whatnot. And I think that's important that we communicate with them about that as well. Also about the opening hours, we've asked for them to give a clear kind of indication of when it will be open. They're talking about separate pharmacy area in what is the building at the moment, and we need to know when that's open. And then talked about no one's having trouble at the moment. I said, you don't know that, and we need to get that line of communication back open to them so that they can, act upon it. So we've asked for them to set things up so that to make that easier for people to communicate with them. And we need people to think about what they were gaining from the surgery a decade ago and what they're not gaining from it now. Because if all the data they have is based on what's being used at the moment, then it's not relevant to us. I know numerous people that are using Widring services simply because it's easier to park there, and they feel the facilities are better, the toilets are more accessible, etc., and the pharmacies open more. And that doesn't mean to say that they wouldn't be using it in Felton. It's a discredit to us, if that's the case. So I've asked for that line of communication to be open back up, and I've asked for that minimum service statement. Is there anything else in that bit?
I think that.
Yeah, I think the big thing is that she said to me that we can't utilise sweeping statements and anecdotal data. So that's what we need to do, is things that are really heard by them.
Yeah, I think one of the things we would probably encourage is if people are using the surgery and they're getting told they've got to go to Widrington, express the fact that you can't, and then ask that to be logged as an issue that you can't make it to Widrington. Because just because you can own a car or get one of your friends to give you a lift, that's not an acceptable way. Like we live in a village with a doctor's surgery, they should be able to provide a service there. If you're okay, we'll move on to public.
Excuse me, I'd like to ask a question.
I know, if you give me a second here, sorry,
Oh,
right?
we're still about to move on.
But no, I'm moving on to public questions.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
All right,
That's me giving a statement. I let interruptions in the statement come, but that was us giving our side as a little update. And now we'll move on to public questions on it.
Can I ask a question quickly, if it's okay with everyone, about the meeting in general? Because it's only the second one, well, Dan was in the with my husband. How does it sort of work? I noticed people put their hands up,
Well,
but do you wait until the end?
yeah. No, so I'm going to move on to public questions now. Then
Right.
I'll go to you and you can ask your question or whatever. And if we can answer it, we'll answer it. If not, we'll log it and we'll try and get back to you. Obviously, I'm aware of the email as well we received. So yeah, as I was saying, you want to say something first?
No, I was just going to explain to
Yeah.
people here probably
Yeah.
won't know the procedure for public questions, that there is a designated period in the agenda for public questions. What we generally ask is that the questions are limited to 2 minutes per person, because obviously we've got a very busy agenda tonight, so we allow a maximum of 10 minutes for the public questions. So if we can't answer questions tonight, we will certainly log them for you and get back to you. Thank you.
Actually, well, just on that point, you actually had a thing asking people to come to the meeting. So
No, we did.
yeah, I know. So to be fair, 10 minutes really isn't enough.
But we do
But no, I appreciate the agenda element, but yeah.
You know, Fiona, how many people turn up normally, so like
Yeah, no,
it's
no,
like,
no.
it's
You
great to see.
you ask people to
We
come.
have asked, and
so.
it's great, and we'll do our best to give everyone.
Yeah. That's all I'm asking. Yeah.
Okay, I say public questions. Over yourself.
So this lady was.
Oh, right.
Thank you.
Right. No, sorry. Right.
There's nobody here to
No.
attack you personally. All we want to do is put the question.
I will
Please
log
don't
the
get
questions.
flustered.
No,
I think
I will log the questions.
all I'll ask is right. try and just reduce the tone in the voice then, okay, because it's coming across a bit aggressive and attacky at the moment. I'm here to do our best for the parish.
We are well aware of that. My question is, I would like answered, why has been all the secrecy about this? And why have Felton Parish Council not been kept in the loop? What is the evidence for this being a better alternative as to a new build? We are taking their word that this is a cheaper option, but is it? What's happening to the SSI monies? On a personal level, because they're not signing up to a lease here with the parish council, so does that put them in a position where they can just pull the plug at any time and Felton's left with nothing again?
Okay, right. Are you okay for me to try and answer them where I can? So, the first one was so secrecy on it. From discussions with them, they have to go. This is the excuses they are giving, and I'll put them as excuses because they.
I think what I'm saying is, are you worried to put yourselves in a position to ask them to be accountable to that?
No.
But actually, there should have been a representative from them here tonight.
Yeah, as we'll push to try and get them at a future meeting to try and answer some of these. We have also I've reiterated to them that they are very much, I would say, kind of put us in the hot seat now on stuff. I know the chair of the PPG has already shared with them some of the comments on the Facebook about the secrecy and stuff.
And it's like the general conversation's gone on there, it's all about an acceptance of this. What my question is,
I know, well, I'm working through it. Okay,
you know, if that's what we're left with, we're left with. But I think, you know,
so,
we've got a challenge to start with.
We can try and challenge it. Obviously, so let me just yeah. To me, it's inexcusable why we've not been kept in the loop. We are pushing to try and make sure that happens in the future. They have used the fact that they had to get board approval at the trust for the reallocation of funds. I find that a bit of a poor excuse considering the funds allocated for a new build up here. And certain things. With regards to it being evidenced as a better alternative, it's not a question I can answer. We can ask them to evidence that. I would argue they might struggle for it, but the acceptance is from our side is purely we still need to be grateful that we're going to still have a doctor's surgery that they're committing money to in the village. You mentioned it's the SSI money, it's the Section 106 money. So the wording in the agreement is doctor surgery contribution, the sum of 250,000 to be used towards the development of a doctor's surgery within the vicinity of the development. I personally would argue that it's down to NCC discretion on whether the refurb of a surgery.
Go back to NCC,
Yeah.
but there was never any guarantee it was going to be spent in Felton.
Yeah. Well, as I say, I think that's down to NCC discretion on where it goes to, and yeah, obviously we'll encourage that at least it gets spent in Felton with NCC, if not on a doctor's surgery, on something else. Because
I would hope it was on something else.
If it fails on the doctor, on the doctor's surgery side, it directs to housing. So that's one of the alternative uses for it. But we are going to speak to County Council about where it gets allocated to. But on the wording of it, it's one of those that is Felton Village, but it's a small village technically that halfway down the Main Street is within the vicinity
But that
of the
money's going to be
development.
used for health needs in a different area, it doesn't have to go to the surgery.
It needs to be within the, if it's used for the doctor's surgery, it needs to be within the vicinity of the development. So that would need to be used at the surgery here if it's eligible, and NCC would decide that, or in a new build up here. Yes, the so there isn't any, there is no lease left. Obviously, the trust have bought the building, and MPC will lease the building off them for the operations of the surgery, which we're not a party in any of that. So I think that roundabout we've kind of answered some of your stuff there with regards to the whether it's a better use or not. It's something we'll need to direct MPC and the trust for that to answer that. Okay, we'll move on to someone else then.
So can I just ask a quick question? Is there a contact email address or for us to email Widrington Surgery so that we can preempt what they come to talk to or the questions that they might get when they come on the 12th of June?
Is this what Cara said she was going to set up for us?
Yeah.
The bulletin board.
Yeah, so Cara said that they were going to set up an e-bulletin for us, so, and that was in discussion today, and it's what I was saying before about getting line of communication there. So that is, the ball's rolling with that, and as soon as, if we get any information before they distribute it out, then we'll let you know. Thank you.
Firstly, just before I ask the question, I thank the members of the council for standing to be elected. I really do appreciate the time and effort and the hard work that you put in. I think that was sometimes you just have to say thank you. It's not that to do. There's 2 points that I really want to ask. One is to do with something that Gemma was mentioning about standard level, service level agreement. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but surely the service level agreement that patients in a constituency for the surgery should be laid down by the Northumberland Health Authority, because you live in Felton doesn't mean you have a lesser opportunity to have the same service if you live in Widrington. Or is this negotiable?
What she just kept saying was that the planned services were based on service use and the number of people that were registered at the practice. She kept coming back to service use, which was my argument with her. And this is what I was really pushing, that they don't have the data to support that, if that's what she's saying. And we were pulling this out time and time again, because, as I said, the change that has happened and the way that the service has declined, and I'm not using that word lightly because it has declined dramatically. They can't base the use at the moment as that. We've got more people in the village that are seeking private healthcare, and I'm not talking as overall having full private cover, but for certain things that would otherwise be treated in the village, compared to what we were doing previously. And it's like I was saying, I've not got the data to support it. I can only say anecdotally from talking to people.
See,
but
some of their statistics based on usage is the
Yeah,
wrong thing. Like,
exactly.
I gave up bothering getting my monthly prescription from them.
Yeah.
I just go to Widrington because I can get it there.
Yeah.
I can't,
Exactly.
And that's sort
But
of
they
thing.
don't have that
No.
data, and they don't have it. So when they're saying we don't need to have the dispensary open for those hours because people don't need it, all of the prescriptions are collected during these hours. Yes, because you're not providing that service, and so we went over it quite a lot.
Joanna, can I just make a suggestion on that point? And I've got questions, but surely common sense would dictate that every patient who has an address in Felton or Swarland or Newton-on-Moor is far more likely to want to access service here than there. Is that where we're starting from?
It should be, yes.
Just common
But it
sense.
was, she kept going down to service use, that service provision was based on service use. So we have to push this, that the service use would be much higher if the service provision was there. And that's it, and I think that's what we need to keep coming back to.
The other point also is that when this building is being refurbished, right, what provision will be made as a village during that period? Because planners and builders are very optimistic
Yeah.
about their time
So,
scale of working.
Because at the moment it operates as two separate units, doesn't it? You've got the residential side of the property, and you've got the bit where the surgery is at the moment. And I think my assumption will be that they will carry on in the surgery out of what will then be dispensary, and move everything through, and then do the rest of the work there. And I think there's plenty of scope for that to happen. As they said, when we discussed in the meeting, that any external changes will be minimal, so they're not expecting to extend or anything. They are, because the residential side of the property that they're buying includes the driveway up the back and the garage and the parking up there. So that they plan on using as staff parking to try and alleviate what would be on the main street. And they said that they're looking at the full scope of what parking that they can create up there to make that better. So I think that the vast proportion of works will be internal in the residential side, and then things will move through. So that would be what they were saying.
That's their plan.
I have my questions in 4 parts, but I will be brief. First of all, I just want to sympathise with all the members of the Parish Council, past and present, for the time they have had wasted on this development, because that's what it amounts to. That every minute of every bit of work you spent has been a waste. And on that note, I would like to say, is there anywhere a running total of the financial cost to the Parish Council of this whole debacle?
I think we've got obviously the legal fees.
The legal fees on the lease that was being negotiated with Assura, I want to say is circa 9,000 to 10,000, round about that. Obviously that doesn't take into account any of the clerk's hours or that. And
Bellway gave us 10 grand for solicitors' fees that was used long before we were on the Parish Council as well. So it's about 20 grand in legal fees, plus then all the clerk's hours and things.
So significant cost.
Thank you. You mentioned before about trusting and the fact that they had been underhand in the way they dealt with it. And I would say it's extremely unethically being handled, and I would like to know how they think that anyone here will trust them again. That's not a question you can answer.
It's not a question. It is something I've raised concerns with them and said I think they've got a lot of trust to try and gain back in the village and the parish as a whole, and outwith of the parish itself, because it affects, as you say, it's swirling, you turn over everywhere, everywhere's being affected by it. So I think there is a lot of trust to be regained.
Absolutely. Jenna mentioned 1,600 patients. Is that in Widdrington, or is that the total?
This is what the
what they
quoted as the users of the.
So they talked about having the correct ratio between the two sites. Do we know how many patients have got registered who are in Widdrington?
I don't
because
know.
as has been touched on, we've simply become used to a second-class citizen service here. But if there's if we've only got a doctor 2 mornings a week, and they have a doctor 5 mornings and 5 afternoons a week, is that the ratio of patients? They must have an awful lot of people in Widdrington if that's the case. And the third thing I was going to ask about was the Section 106 fund, and I don't know about anybody else in here, but they run that as a business. That's the way healthcare works now. Why should that business be given £250,000 that was earmarked for Felton for something that's not going to happen? And I would move heaven and earth to stop them getting that £250,000. It should go on social housing, whatever it goes on. It shouldn't be given to a business.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I'd say. My understanding, reading the wording of the 106, it's loosely worded that it allows county council the discretion on whether they classify there as, nowhere in it did it mention that it had to be a new build surgery, which, answers that, I think.
My fourth point, Adam, and finally, the lease. I believe that the lease was to be sold to Assura for £20,000. Did that go through?
No.
So they don't own the land?
They don't
lease the land, sorry.
They don't lease the land. As soon as we found out, I communicated with Knights, our solicitors, to put full stop on it, and we wrapped up things with them, and it might be on the agenda tonight as we're paying a final bill with them as well.
Thank you.
And currently the land is still registered to Felton Parish Council.
Thanks.
I'll get to you next time.
Yes, I was going to ask about who actually owns that land at present. Is that Felton Parish Council?
Felton Parish Council at present.
Because, see, further on the agenda tonight, there's already a bid in by Felton County. I hope we aren't going to get down that line before.
No. This is.
I'd like to build a match on there. Can I get my bid in?
All I would say is, I think Felton can have seen that obviously the media put out that everything was cancelled up there, and they've said, here's our proposal for it. It is not them saying this is what we're doing with it, or it's not Felton Parish Council saying this is what we're doing with it. They're just saying, if you wish, we can take it on and do this. But it is, from my understanding, it's purely a proposal from them to put to us as for consideration. What I would say on it before we even get to that agenda, we're a long way off deciding what's happening with that land at the moment. I think there's a lot more water to pass under the bridge before then.
The second point I would make, question, and Gemma touched on it about parking, and maybe parking off the drive. Well, I've got the deeds to all that property. I live in the back road.
Yeah.
I've got the deeds from 1901. I have got the right of way from that back, all the way back up that thing, as has Ivy Cottage. They've got pedestrian rights, I've got vehicular rights. But if the surgery tries to produce those deeds, I think it'll be hard pushed, because I've got the originals.
Right.
I wouldn't say that too loud, Jim. I'd be going up here.
I think I've got them by mistake, because the land registry.
Good for you, it's over. Lock them away.
Next.
Just regarding the point on the 1600 that's been quoted for the number of patients at Felton. Felton and Widrington are a merged practice. There's only one practice. It's got a total of 4,600 or it did about a year ago. There's no longer division between the two practices. So when they're quoting 1,600, that's before there were merged practices. It's not a relevant number today.
I say that it's a number we were given from them. I'm not aware when that number was produced or how it was produced. It's a number that was given to us by the trust today.
Well, what it's illustrating is that...
I'm
just saying, if I'm allowed to make my point, what it's illustrating, they continue to mislead. Because it's a merged practice. So there is no separate Felton and Widrington practices.
I've been making assumptions on how they would come up with that, so we'll leave that there.
So just a quick one, can I just ask, because a lot of people are also here about the land bit, that you just bring 11B, the CAN proposal forward and discuss that one next, so that some people
want to finish with this right now.
Yeah. Can't you sue the NPC for what they've sort of done? What I mean is, like, from our point of view, we were talking about it, and obviously, I don't come from the meeting, so I'm sorry if I got a clue. But I just wondered if you can force their hand by nobody supporting a planning application in relation to the surgery, and where it's going to be now and put it to them, do you actually want to be here? And is that why this is all sort of falling apart? Because they don't really want to be here, they really want to sort of focus on Wigglington.
Yeah.
And I just sort of wondered, for all the time and effort and money that's been invested in there, is it time to sort of stand up to them? Is it possible that we can sort of stand up to them? I mean, why not? It's a free country. Why can't we say to them, well, we want you to do what you said you were going to do?
Yeah, I would fear. It's a good question. I would fear that if everyone went on and rejected the application, they would then go, okay, we'll declare we don't want the surgery in Felton, we'll shut it down.
But you know how sometimes you've got to push and sort of, you've got to go and sort of like the line.
I think it's also is that we need to work with them to secure the provision. And I think, so our priorities really, and I think everyone would agree, is firstly is that we maintain a productive relationship with them, secure a medical provision for the village, and then try to accrue funding for, to make up for what we have lost. And we will be asking those questions. We will be pursuing the 106 money if it isn't going directly into the doctors. We will be making sure that it's things that are going to benefit the village. What I'm not about to do is personally, as a resident and a member of the council, is starting a war, because I don't think there's anything to be gained from it. I think again it comes back to the change of hands within the practice, and I'm not saying it's who are we going to sue? Is it Assura? Is it the previous owner of the practice? Is it the people that have just taken over? And in their words, they've stepped in to save the surgery in Felton, and that is what they've done. We would have lost it if MPC hadn't stepped in. So I think we need to reflect on that as well. And I think there's a relief that it looks like we've got a surgery there, and I think going back to the statement we put on Facebook when we said that we were delighted, and those were my words, that we are delighted that has been secured. That does not mean to say that we are not disappointed, angry, completely disillusioned, frustrated by the whole thing, which we are. But the priority is making sure that provision stays there, and that we support that, and we work with them to make sure that provision is as good as it possibly can be, and that whatever out of this situation, that we can gain back to put funding into other projects within the village. I mean, everybody knows what I want funding for, and there's a very, very good argument that is a benefit of people's health to have decent sports and recreation facilities, and I will be pursuing that argument as well down the line. Sorry?
I would support you on that.
Thank you.
Yeah, I wasn't trying to say sort of go and sort of push it to the point that they just go stuff walk off. That I just mean from the point of view, it feels a real stitch up between Assura that Adam said in January, I think he said, they sort of knew that. If you
bear with me, so one of the things that we obviously on the parish council, we obviously discuss things, and I would say every time and again when we get pushed, we've had the extension of the lease from 100 years to 999. We've had to concede on this. There's so many concessions we have made as a parish council to try and push the surgery through, and I think there's a few of us that it's of our opinions that they've been wanting us to push back on it so that they can go, oh, there what's the parish council that said no to the surgery happening. We have conceded every single time, and then they've gone, oh shit, we need to find another excuse not to do it now. And it's dragged on so long, building costs have escalated, and that's the reason they're going down. Every they tendered it became significantly over budget. The Assura then have said, well, look, to make that viable, we need an increase in rent. Assura then had that kicked back, so then that, it's just, it became inviable financially that way. And they've also looked at the figures, purchasing the building and putting money into that. It's going to be a fraction of the cost, but well, I think we just need to see how it goes.
Sorry, I don't mean to come across as, I mean, I suppose it feels like like everybody in the village has been screwed, like royally, between the smaller
That's what we're having.
and it's like, it feels like you just want to sort of push and call the bluff and say, you know, do you actually want to be here? Because if you don't, why don't you just sell away and do somebody and let them sort of move down here, open another practice?
Surgeries in, then have a word with them.
Shall I?
Yeah,
So sorry if I come across like that.
I think one of the things they did pick up today is I think they've got NPC of some like 24 different surgeries now that they've picked up from various different people. I believe they're stepping in and helping out where they're failing as well. Is what their stance is, isn't it? But as you say, we're aware they're running it as a business as well, so it comes down to that. It needs to be viable for them.
Thanks, Jenna.
Yeah. Any other public questions with regards to the surgery down here, or are we all okay there? If it's okay with everyone, we will. If there's anyone here to discuss item 11, not B. Oh, 11B, we'll call it the CAMS proposal.
Second.
Yeah.
Second that, it should have been the bin.
Should have been a B instead of a hand. I think, as I said earlier, this is a proposal that's been put in by Felton Can. Sorry, yeah.
Any proposal has to be okayed by Bellways.
I pass.
The original covenant on the land is set by Bellways. So if the covenant has got to be varied, then
I think
the
that's
Bellways need to be on board from day one.
Right. So one of the things that I've got a copy of the land registry. I couldn't find it tonight. However, I don't necessarily think that is clearly worded in the actual land registry title for the land for it.
What was signed?
Well, it might not be on the full title for the land on the land registry, which would where it would be more contractually binding.
Can I just say,
but as I said, I need to get a copy of it again to verify.
Having owned property built by them with a covenant that any changes had to be approved by them, all they want is a fee.
They
don't care.
Bellway's not going to come back there and build houses on that tiny portion of land. It's not financially viable for them as a mega development builder sort of thing. And yeah, if we were to then try and ask for it off it, I think we would. I'm sure it's this discussion to be had, but obviously before we make any decisions with what would happen on the land, we would also get legal consultation on if there are any covenants. As I said, from my limited knowledge of it, from my reading of the registry before, it wasn't clearly worded on it.
The only covenant on the land registries was that it was to be used for a doctor's medical practice.
Yeah. So we'll clarify everything properly before we make any decisions to move forwards.
Could I ask, as we're on the agenda, just for clarification, it's under correspondence received. Has the proposal been circulated, or can you tell us what it is? And can I propose that we don't actually discuss it, because this is not the appropriate place. We say it will be considered in due course.
It has been forwarded to everyone.
Right.
So,
give us the gist.
I don't
know what it is.
Yeah. So the gist of it was. Basically, to take on the land as a potential to use volunteers to help with fruit planting, pruning, harvesting, apples, create a mini orchard, help use it for the children at the school, to study insects, birds, etc. They believe the site could accommodate 15 trees, mainly apples, nuts, cherries, and the orchard would offer a quiet space with benches and a winding path. Felton can send and manage the orchard and set up a community orchard team, including residents, at little or no cost to the parish council. And it's talked about how the UK imports 3/4 of its apples, and mainly as far as USA and New Zealand. Felton Can would consult the local residents with regards to the proposal from the outset.
It doesn't sound as exciting as my strip club.
No strip club would make more money.
Yeah, so I've not seen that email yet. But I think just like Felton Can have put in a proposal that if you ask me, it's a good proposal for the land, but we need to consider all options there. And I think as anyone that's approached me in the street, we've booked legal fees there that we need to try and put the money from somewhere. So all options are, I think, on the table, and as Lindsay pointed out, we'll need to consult the Bellway if there is any restrictions on the land to try and get that moved before we proceed with anything.
And bear in mind that to get that land and the £250,000, we sacrificed, I believe, 5 affordable homes, which the village desperately needed.
We've got the house as part of the neighbourhood plan. They used a consultation with a company, Ecom, who do housing needs assessments, and that it's a very complex document, but it does identify the need for the affordable housing market.
Is that an avenue that the parish council could go down to try and get a builder to build some affordable homes on their land?
It might be one of the avenues that we will look at, because
and
as I say,
the section 106
I
million.
think what it would be
that.
It would, again, as I say, with it would be down to county council's discretion there, but it's either doctor surgery or housing is how it was worded. So obviously, if we went down the housing route, we would push to say, well, look here, can we use the money for this?
What document says surgery or affordable housing? Because the land that Bellway's developed for their housing was a set piece of land, and how they developed it was entirely up to them.
I'm not saying that the land's for that, the S106 money's for that.
In their initial planning, in order to get the planning for the estate, they had to provide a certain percentage of what was called affordable homes.
Right, yes.
And therefore, when they donated the land, instead of the entrance section to us for the surgery, that was parcelled against some of those affordable homes.
But they knew they weren't getting that land from day one.
No, they didn't. Their initial plans had houses on that land, and it was a revised plan that allocated that land to a doctor's surgery, and they reduced the number of affordable homes. And I might be wrong, but I think the subsidy was £50,000 per home, and 5 homes times 50,000, and there's your £250,000. It didn't cost Bellway a penny.
Yeah. So the wording in the 106 was, in the event that the doctor's surgery contribution has not been spent or committed to expenditure on the purpose for which it was paid within 3 years of the date of the payment of the third instalment, the council is to instead use the monies for affordable housing purpose. Obviously, there was an extension on that put in when things were delayed with the surgery. However, that's our understanding. It's housing, the money, or doctor surgery, and then again it would be down to county discretion.
Just very quickly, I like the idea of yours, but can you make it clear to them that they'll be responsible for survey, because there's a lot of drains and electrical cables underneath there.
Yeah.
And if they're going to plant trees,
We know all about the perils of planting trees down there. So.
It's not just the drains, it's the, when they put the site back to its original stage, it didn't quite do that. They actually dumped a load of debris and things, then covered it with soil.
Yeah, that's it. I'm fully aware it's not, that it's one of the reasons why we cut it to a level, but it's never deemed as a play area or anything like that. The land is not, it's not suitable for that, but so rightly so, because it was never, it was just wasteland until a surgery became.
So we can just say thank you again for getting the land cut. It looks so much better, thank you.
Yeah, it's one of the, I think we approved that back in the April meeting to get it done. What we, now we've got this information, we will look at, are we getting a maintenance cut on it once a month or something? We'll see how it grows.
What is the cost?
It was £80.
Okay.
So it's minimal cost, like in the grand scheme of it, but obviously unbudgeted at this moment though, because of that. So I think with regards to the considering the proposal, I think, well, I'll put it to the council, but my opinion would be we say thanks at this stage, but we'll consider all avenues and we'll come back to them at a later date. If we're happy with it.
Everybody uses housing.
Yeah.
It's just like that, isn't it?
Yes, that's 11B there, yeah. That was 11B. So, unless it does, yeah.
Can I just suggest, is there any other points that everybody wants to get involved in?
So just remind
chance to get out.
Just remind today, the council have voted to say thanks to Felton Can for the proposal, but we're going to explore other avenues at this stage and revert back to them if we wish to proceed with it in the future. Are there any other questions with regards to land? Yeah.
If you said earlier about you don't think Bellway will build on the land because it wouldn't be cost effective, or however you worded it earlier, I can't remember now.
Yeah.
But how do you know the definite wall? Because at the far end of the development, you know, the farthest point that you go is if you were going to plough through the end of the fence into the other field, they own that section of land there, Bellway.
They own that section.
They own that section, and I've always wondered, or we've always wondered, whether they're kind of box clever and sort of thought, I'll keep that little bit. Just in case we come back, and then we're going to start going to that field and build a ton more houses.
That field is out with the settlement boundary of the village.
Well, it is, but I just meant
No,
like
there would need to be either changes to the settlement boundary, which would, I understand, has to go through rural exceptions, which going in there and building 80 new build houses wouldn't be. If we said, if we identified a strip of land and said, here, this would be great, you could put 20 social housing, that might come in as a rural exception that lets you extend the settlement boundary for it. However, our purpose is to try and not extend settlement boundaries because they've been put there quite tight to the village on purpose to save it falling into, similar situations like Long Framlington and stuff where they just keep growing and growing.
So when we had meetings regarding the neighbourhood plan, which anybody wants to get involved with, there's still lots of scope for people needing to do it. But we talked about looking at smaller pockets of land for the development of social housing and affordable housing. And it's so that the developers, they don't want to be looking at anything that's really less than 10 houses. Because we were looking to see if there was anything within the settlement boundary that would be, suitable for it. And it's just an economy of scale thing. So if the settlement boundary was to be expanded and it was to be able to accommodate that economy of scale, then yes, they would be looking at that would be something that they probably want to do. But it's looking at small pockets of land that just aren't by the time you've put all the, you know, infrastructure and things in place, so.
Yeah, thank you.
Anything else? If there's nothing else, we're going to move on to the rest of the agenda now.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you all for coming. Okay? And just before you all leave, like, you've obviously seen some of our faces here, and if you see us walking around, ask us questions. We're more than happy to answer.
So you may get bogged down in this way.
As long as you're nice to us.
Okay.
But yeah, it's fine. Like, just we're more than happy to give updates where and when we know. But we're all in regular communication when things change and stuff like that. So if they don't know, they'll be able to find out and get back to you.
Oh, thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Save the exciting bit. Well done.
If you don't mind, can we pause for a second? I'll slide down a glass of water. Oh, dear.
Good public question session, though. Good.
Can I ask just informally, I might know the answer, does the parish council, I mean, we're involved in this one because we own a bit of land on which the new surgery was going to be built, but does the parish council have any official recognised role in negotiating health services? Because, you know, I think the expectation is almost that we do, but it seems to me the best is to have the Patients Association talk to the trust and the parish council
I think there's going to be
put in their bit, but
the point where we will cease.
I think we were only involved because we were in the land.
And you know,
and
it's
you know,
for
the
the
sort
good
of
of the
body
village.
that could do the negotiations over a period of time between the doctor's surgery and
But there's going to be a period, if the development goes ahead, then we will want to have lines of communication open and things until that point and be involved.
I mean, we could try doing a head count of how many people go to other surgeries.
I think
like me.
That's the thing.
I know John doesn't go there anywhere.
What's the role that you have as representatives of the parish council, council taxpayers, to represent the views of those people? You know, it doesn't matter if you've got any legal role.
No, I think for the foreseeable, as we're transitioning through this project, we'll stay in touch with them and pass on our comments when we get them. I think what I kind of said tonight was the PPG to maybe step up their game a bit in communicating with the wider practice and not just those involved in the PPG. And we're encouraging the practice, the NPC themselves to have to communicate regular communication. So with a page in the bridge on every issue at least, and try and get that going forward. They are, NPC did say they are going to have their own publication of some sort, is what, and how we got on to saying that's how we got onto the bridge annual. You can put something in there as well. That will have a dedicated Felton Widgerton section, you know, on here's our hours, here's somebody new to the practice or whatever. They're going to try and do something like that, and that is in the pipeline. So obviously, if it doesn't come to fruition, we can keep pushing for it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
That answers the question.
Yeah. Right. And I didn't get the previous in because I wasn't council or anything. Sorry.
No worries.